Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we've got some free agency breaking news for the Baltimore Orioles for the MLB. And that's because the Orioles just made a move and made their first signing of the free agency period here on a Saturday afternoon. Thanksgiving weekend, of course, just happened on Thursday. But the Orioles been out here and have signed Ryan Helsley, the closer, formerly with the New York Mets last year after he got traded there, but he was known for playing a big chunk of his career in St. Louis, where he was one of the best closers in baseball in his time in St. Louis. Really looking at these numbers from like 2022 on, he's been excellent. Last year with the Mets, he wasn't great. Like in the second half of the season, after he got traded to the Mets at the deadline, he didn't really perform great for the Mets at all, but the numbers that we are going to be looking at here are the numbers from his years in St. Louis, where he was one of the best closers in baseball. And the Orioles went out here, made a move fairly early in free agency. Pretty much all the major free agents are still out there. The only other move that's been made in terms of like a signing that was actually like a major move was the Dylan Cease signing the other day, where he signed like a 7-year, $210 million deal with the Blue Jays. Obviously, Dylan Cease is someone who I was really interested in getting. I was really eager on getting Dylan Cease, and there's a part of me that really thought that we were going to get Cease, and we were going to sign him as the frontline starter signing this offseason. But Cease is gone. He's going with Toronto, which is fine. They did pay him a lot of money. I'm actually fine with not signing him there. But this is really the second like major free agent signing of like the top guys available in free agency. So Ryan Helsley going to Baltimore. If you guys watched the video where I was kind of talking about guys that I would love to be an Oriole, whenever I was talking about our true closer position that we needed to go get, because obviously Felix Bautista not going to pitch all of this year, I talked about going out and getting a true closing pitcher for this season. And Ryan Helsley was one of the guys that I named. Obviously, there's guys like Edwin Diaz and Pete Fairbanks, and obviously Ryan Helsley and Robert Suarez and guys like that. But Ryan Helsley was near the top of that list, and I'm completely fine with this signing. It's a 2-year, $28 million deal with an opt-out after this season. So this isn't a long-term thing, which is fine, I guess, but I do like the money that they gave him. They didn't have to like break the bank on some long-term deal. This is a 2-year deal with an opt-out after this season, so this might be the only, like, he might only play for the Orioles for 1 year. Hopefully he can opt into his deal and stay here for 2027, but he will be the closing pitcher for the Orioles for this next season at least, so that is going to be really, really, really good to see. We're going to go over some of his numbers in just a second, but again, I'm very happy with this move. Mike Elias starting off for agency hot. Obviously, he already made the Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward trade near like the start of free agency. So this is the second major Orioles move they've made this offseason. And if you remember the last offseason, the Orioles just kind of waited around and stuff like that. And then, signed Tyler O'Neill, signed Charlie Morton, signed Tomoyuki Sugano, signed Ramon Laureano. So we kind of like waited around and kind of like got whoever was left over. But the Orioles are being quick here. Initial moves made here at the beginning of free agency. They go out and get their closer for the future. Maybe not for the future, but they go out and get their closer for the season. And then they also obviously trade for Taylor Ward. So again, this is a very much a win now thing. Go in and get in their closer who has had much success in the MLB over the years. Obviously, his Mets numbers aren't great, but, we're going to look at the positives with Ryan Helsley, which there is a lot of them. So Ryan Helsley, obviously, is an Oriole. Very, very good move. I'm very, very, very happy with this move. A true closing pitcher is so important in baseball, and it's just important to go and get a true closer. And sometimes you can have like a closer who might not be like great, but then he goes to a new environment and then he ends up doing really, really, really good, or the opposite of that. But Ryan Helsley is an Oriole. I love the move from Mike. I like that he's getting these moves done early, that he's kind of like pouncing on this free agency stuff early with the Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward trade already, and now this move. So the stove is cooking here for Mike Elias, and this isn't even going to be hopefully this isn't even like the major move we're gonna make. Obviously, I still do expect the Orioles to go out and get either a Framber Valdez or a Michael King or a Ranger Suarez. One of those guys I would love to be an Oriole. They have to go snatch one of those guys. I said, or maybe even like a Tatsuya Mai as well. But Dylan Cease obviously was on that list, but he is now with the Blue Jays, so I don't think that the Blue Jays are going to be going after any other of the top-tier starting pitchers, so you can kind of take them off that list. But they do get Dylan Cease, which is obviously good for them. But, Framber, Michael King, not Dylan Cease, but Framber, Michael King, obviously Ranger Suarez, and maybe Tatsuya Mai. And then there was some rumors the other day that the Orioles are interested in Kyle Schwarber, so we'll see what ends up happening. Mike Elias making moves early, which is a very good sign of things to come. I think Mike Elias is going to be active. I think he's going to be into it. And, we've seen the Orioles already make 2 big moves this offseason. I think that this is just the start of moves they're going to make. Obviously, going out and getting one of the top tier premium starting pitchers in free agency. That is obviously extremely, extremely important. That is at the top of the list of most important things that the Orioles need to do this offseason. And then probably the second thing was going out and getting a true closer. And it looks like the Orioles already went out and did that. Obviously, this makes the bullpen better. But I do think that it is possible that the Orioles can still get like an Edwin Diaz or a Robert Suarez or Pete Fairbanks or someone like that. Just to kind of have like a setup man, or, use Helsley as the setup man and someone else as the closer. But either way, this really does, help the back end, or really the front end of the bullpen in general in terms of like 9th inning, 8th inning stuff. Ryan Helsley is a big, big help there. And I'm very, very, very happy with this move for Mike. And again, just him getting to this stuff early, I think that it is going to be a sign of good things to come moving forward. And obviously the next thing that I'm hoping to look for here is maybe one more, top end reliever. But also the main thing, of course, being one of the high end starters, which we're going to be on a lookout for. But this is not the only move that Mike is going to make. There's no possible way that he is done after this. He's going to go after one of the top end starters. I'm confident in him. I think he learned his lesson from last year, and you were seeing that he's very aggressive. So I'm really, really, really excited to see, once the starting pitching market starts to go, where Mike Elias is going to be in that mix. Maybe even a Kyle Schwarber's on the table. So lots of different possibilities for the Orioles. It seems like they're in on a lot of different people. So we'll see how many more top-end free agents they're going to be able to go after. But Ryan Helsley is a great, great start in terms of the signings this offseason. But going over here and looking at some of the stats for Ryan Helsley, basically the big thing here is that Ryan Helsley was one of the best closers in baseball for a good bit. You know what I mean? He's still somewhat young. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he did start pitching in 2019. Obviously, 2025, he was on 2 different teams. He had 22 games played for the Mets. He had 36 games played for the Cardinals. But throughout his career, you can look at the ERA, you can look at the strikeouts. It is among some of the best that you'll see in baseball in terms of a closer. Back in 2019, he had a 2.95 ERA. Back in 2020, he had a 5.25 ERA and 13 starts. But when you really go and look at 2022 is when he completely kind of turned his season and his career around. So starting at 2022, he had 54 games played in 2022 as a closer. 54 games played, 9-1 record. Obviously, he is a closer, so he's not going to start any of those games. So 54 games played, and in how many innings? Where are the innings here? 2022, he had 64.2 innings pitched, had a 1.25 ERA, and throughout 64 innings, he had 94 strikeouts with a .74 whip. These numbers in 2022 were arguably the best in baseball when it comes to the closers in baseball. It's 94 strikeouts in 64 innings. That's a plus 30 margin from innings to strikeouts, plus a .74 whip and a 1.25 ERA. in 64 innings. That is extremely, extremely impressive. Then when you go over to 2023, his numbers were great again. 2.45 ERA in 50 and how many innings? 36 innings. Didn't pitch that much in 2023. I think he did deal with an injury, but in 2023 had a 2.45 ERA. In 36 innings pitched, he had 52 strikeouts. So again, he is a big, big, big strikeout guy when it comes to being a reliever. And also with Ryan Helsley, there was teams that were looking to convert him to a starter as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the Orioles end up doing with him and where they kind of value him in terms of like their chart for, relievers or whatever like that. We'll see if he's a setup guy. We'll see if he's going to actually be the closer. But we'll see what ends up happening there. But in 2023, again, 2.45 ERA, 36 innings, 52 strikeouts. 2024 had another great year. Played 65 games in 2024. With a 2.04 ERA, 66 innings, 79 strikeouts, another positive strikeout margin there by a decent amount. But I do kind of want to go over here and look at the save numbers because he had 19 saves in 2022. He had 14 saves in 2023, but he had 49 saves in 2024. So just 2 seasons ago, he had 49 saves, 79 strikeouts, 66 innings, a 2.04 ERA, a 1.1 whip. One of the best closers in baseball, again, really for like 3 straight years. And then going into last season's stats in 2025, obviously these are important because it is the most recent we've seen from Ryan Helsley. So in 2025, he played 36 games with the Cardinals and 22 games with the Mets because he did get traded at the deadline to the Mets. But in 2025, going over to his Cardinals stats, he played 36 games with the Cardinals, 36 innings with the Cardinals, and through those 36 innings had 41 strikeouts and also had a 3 ERA. So in 2025, even when he was with the Cardinals, his stats weren't great, but they weren't horrible as well. 41 strikeouts, 36 innings, a 3.00 ERA, and also had 21 saves when he was with the Cardinals in 2025. But when you go over to his stats in 2025 with the New York Mets, it was not great at all. A lot of Mets fans that I know and just Mets fans online obviously hated Ryan Helsley because he was kind of a reason why their season did collapse. So in 2025, when he was with the New York Mets, had 3 losses, 0 wins recorded in 22. And again, these are 22 games with the Mets. He had a 7.2 ERA, 20 innings, 22 strikeouts. So again, he still can get the strikeouts, but a 7.2 ERA, a 1.8 WHIP, and had 4 blown saves with the Mets. And didn't get a single save with the Mets. But I do think that they were not really using Ryan Helsley as like the closer. They were using him more as the setup man for Edwin Diaz because obviously they had Edwin Diaz over there. But Ryan Helsley was the setup guy there. That's why he had no saves. But a 7.2 ERA with the Mets. In 20 innings, he had a 7.2 ERA. His numbers with the Mets were atrocious. His numbers with the Mets were horrible, and in 2025, when you combine his ERA and stuff like that, he had a 4.5 ERA with 63 strikeouts, a 1.5 WHIP, and 21 saves in 2025. So his numbers in 2025 weren't great, and a majority because his stats with the Mets were just horrible. But obviously, when you get traded midseason, sometimes it's hard to adjust to a system, especially when you're a closer getting traded midseason. Maybe it kind of like shocked him getting traded midseason, and maybe being with the Mets just wasn't a right fit, and it just wasn't for him. We've seen many times before, just in sports in general, you can be a great player, you can get traded somewhere, then you play really bad, and then you go somewhere else, get a fresh start somewhere else, have a training camp and an off season with another team, and then you're kind of back in a rhythm, back in a groove, and you're back to being who you are. So I'm not worried about Ryan Helsley. 2022, 2023, and 2024, and honestly in the first half in 2025 he was just a solid closer, and especially when you look at the years of like 2022, 2023, 2024, for those 3 years, which again are very recent, he was one of the best closers in baseball through those seasons. But then in 2025, he kind of converted to being a setup man for Edwin Diaz, and I think him being the setup man in the 7th or 8th inning really did kind of mess with him a little bit, and that's why his ERA was so high. Maybe it was a mental thing, who knows, but I think that Ryan Helsley is going to be the true closer for the Orioles this season, so hopefully his numbers being a true closer can go back to being what they were in 2022, 23, and 24, because those are when we saw him obviously at his best when he was a closer for the Cardinals. But one more thing that I did want to look at before we wrap up this episode is just kind of who is next for the Orioles to sign. Like, who's going to be the next person that they sign for, in free agency. And obviously the big thing is the starting pitching market. There are some great starting pitchers that are available. But when we look at the starting pitching market and we go over to, free agents that are just available, obviously the top guys, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Michael King. Any of these three guys right here, the Orioles got to land one of these three. It usually was one of these four guys, including Dylan Cease, but now Dylan Cease is gone, so that's one down. So Framber, Ranger, Michael King, they got to get one of these four guys. And when we go over to relief pitchers and go over to like the market value for relief pitchers, obviously, Ryan Helsley's right here. He is off the board, so the Orioles get one of their top guys and get one of their, get their closer for the season. And obviously, we can still get a setup guy like a Kyle Finnegan or Pete Fairbanks or Tyler Rogers, even someone like that. We could still go out and get one of these guys to be like a setup man. I would like us to still be in the relief pitcher market. But, guys like Edwin Diaz, Robert Suarez, Jason Foley, these are really, high-end guys. But getting Ryan Helsley, who's still up here as well, that's a great signing. I really love it. I really do appreciate Mike Elias going out and getting this done. And I kind of like him going out and getting the closer early because now he has more time just to solely focus on the starting pitcher market and making sure he gets one or two starting pitchers that can, seriously help us for this season. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify. Make sure to click the link in the bio to check out the Twitter and the Instagram. I post all the time on Twitter, post all the time on Instagram. Make sure to give those things a follow. The Twitter is a lot of fun over there. I post my initial reactions to everything. I posted like my initial reaction when I first saw the Ryan Helsley news. But obviously there's a lot more coming up soon for the Orioles, hopefully. And every single time they make a move in free agency with any sort of relevancy, which is pretty much going to be anything they do, hopefully. Anytime a big move is made by the Orioles, anytime they go out and sign a notable player, we are going to be, having little bonus episodes kind of talking about that, little breaking news live episodes and stuff like that. And then obviously we're going to be covering the Ravens stuff whenever stuff comes up there. This week, obviously, we're going to be going through practice for the Steelers game, which is obviously really important. And for all the people that are listening that are Ravens fans, we need to be rooting very hard for the Bills tomorrow that the Steelers lose and that the Ravens will go back to being first in the AFC North. And it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be an absolute grudge fest to get to the end of the season between the Ravens and the Steelers, because that's who the division's between, and hopefully the Ravens can still end up winning the division. But beating Pittsburgh in both games is going to be the most important part of that whole thing, and hopefully the Bills can beat the Steelers tomorrow to put us back at first going into the game against the Steelers on Sunday. So we'll talk about the Steelers-Ravens matchup a lot this upcoming week, throughout the week, practice, injury report, all that type of stuff, and also just kind of the keys to victory, what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed for the Ravens offense and all that stuff. But also I hopefully do expect that more moves happen this week in MLB free agency. I think now that it's about to hit December, it's really going to start heating up, but the Orioles still go out there and make a very solid move, but I do think that there is a lot more in store for the Orioles. I just have a good feeling about it, but we'll see what ends up happening. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great Steelers day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see you later. Peace out.